I used to believe something was deeply wrong with me. I wasn't always like that. As a child, I was curious, creative, and wildly intelligent. At least that's what my second grade teacher wrote in my school report. Lana is gifted, unusually perceptive, and too emotionally intelligent for her age. But by the time I turned 14, I no longer recognized myself. I cried often. I felt foggy. I doubted everything I said. I forgot things that had just happened. And my parents, they said it was my mind failing me. You've always been unstable, sweetheart, my mom whispered, holding my hand, her tone fake gentle. We knew this would come sooner or later. You should be grateful we're getting you help. I believed her until I turned 25 and the fog began to lift. It started with a letter, one of those old-fashioned ones from a law firm in another city. I opened it expecting some boring administrative thing. Instead, it said, "Your grandfather's trust fund has remained untouched for over 10 years. As per his will, you are to gain full access this year. Please confirm your mailing address and banking institution." Wait, what trust fund? I didn't even know my grandfather had money. I stormed into the kitchen that night, holding the letter in my shaking hand. My parents were seated at the counter, calmly eating dessert. My mother sipped tea like nothing was wrong. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" I asked. "Grandpa left me a trust fund." "Since when?" My dad didn't even blink. "You're not in the right state of mind to handle that kind of money." "I'm 25 and still struggling with delusions, sweetheart," my mother added. "That therapist you've been seeing, even she thinks you're unstable." And then it clicked. For 10 years, they'd been calling me unstable. They took me to psychiatrists I never chose. They pushed meds I never wanted. They told me what to wear, what to say, and what to forget. But when I reached out to my therapist, Dr. Celia Harding, I asked her plainly, "Did you ever diagnose me with anything?" There was a pause. Then her voice, slow and careful. "Lana, I was hired by your parents, but I never officially diagnosed you. In fact, I filed notes that said the opposite. Mild anxiety, likely situational, not clinical." "Then why did you keep seeing me?" I asked. "Because they paid me too, and they told me if I said anything else, I'd be dismissed." "I'm sorry." I hung up. Something in me cracked open, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel foggy. I felt furious. They hadn't just lied. They built a prison around me, not with walls, but with doubt. They gaslight me into believing I was broken just so they could siphon off a trust fund I didn't know existed. That night, I opened an old shoebox where I kept childhood journals, and what I read chilled me. Mom said not to tell anyone I was locked in my room today. Dad says if I don't take the pills, I'll end up in the hospital like Aunt Claire. I'm not sure anymore if the things I remember are real. They'd been rewriting my brain since I was 13, but they made one mistake. They didn't know I had started to remember. And now I wasn't just their daughter. I was a woman with resources and a plan. I didn't confront them right away. No, that would have been a rookie mistake. The old me, the one they gaslight into silence, might have screamed, cried, begged for truth. But this new version of me, she stayed quiet. She observed and she planned. The first thing I did was contact the bank named in the trust letter. The woman on the line, a kind-sounding branch manager named Irene, confirmed everything. My grandfather had created a sizable trust fund for me before his death. It had been locked until my 25th birthday unless I met an emergency hardship clause. That clause had already been triggered 10 years ago. "Emergency hardship?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "It was signed by your legal guardians. They filed a psychological incompetency claim, and the funds already reallocated over a decade ago to medical oversight and care, my care. They de-stolen from a fund meant to give me a life and used it to keep me sedated and isolated in. The one they built. That money had paid for the pills I didn't need, the private retreats that were just secluded facilities, the therapists that echoed my parents' lies. Only Celia had ever pushed back, and they buried her voice. I visited Celia in person the next day. "I want to hire you," I said, sliding a retainer across the table. "Not as my therapist, as a consultant. I want you to help me document everything ethically, legally, quietly." She blinked and then nodded. The next few months were methodical. I requested copies of every document ever filed under my name. I hired a forensic accountant under a pseudonym to trace fund withdrawals. He found nearly $220,000 gone, used to pay for my mental health expenses. But there was more. My parents had taken loans against the trust. Yes, loans. And used my name as the silent cosigner. They had registered a business under my social security number, Clarity Wellness, Inc., an LLC that billed for fake wellness retreats. It was a shell company, and I was its fake CEO. I'd been a patient, a diagnosis, a victim. But now I was a witness, and I had power. I launched a quiet investigation with a lawyer, someone who'd been burned by his own family, someone who didn't ask too many questions. Together, we began building a case, not for court, but for leverage. I wasn't interested in a long public lawsuit. I wanted something colder. And Celia, she delivered the final blow. She told me that 3 years ago she had submitted a report to a medical board stating that she believed I was being misdiagnosed intentionally for financial gain. She was ignored, but she still had the file. It included voice memos from her phone. One of them was my mother. "Just write the notes, Drev.Harding. If she thinks she's fine, she'll stop taking the meds. You know how hard that makes our life." Another was my father. "It's our money." My father was out of his mind leaving it to her. "We're just doing what's fair." Celia stared at me across the table. "I can release these to you, but once you act, there's no going back." I smiled. For the first time in years, the smile reached my eyes. There was no going back. The moment they made me think I was insane. A week later, I invited them over to my place for dinner. Just like old times. I smiled, set out their favorite wine, even made the dessert my mom used to bake when I was sick. They arrived laughing, chatty. "Sweetheart," my mom cooed, brushing my hair behind my ear. "You look good. You must be back on the meds." I laughed with them, poured them drinks. Then I passed them an envelope. Inside was a one-page printout, a transcript of their voices admitting what they did. They paled. "What is this?" My dad muttered, voice suddenly hoarse. "It's not legal," Mom said. "It's a bluff." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I tilted my head. I also attached it to a scheduled email along with the full audio. "It goes out to the Trust Legal Board and the IRS in 48 hours. They froze. "I don't want money," I said, staring right at them. "I want truth, and I want my name off everything. The loans, the shell company, the diagnosis." Dad reached for the wine. "No more games," I added. "Fix it. You have 48 hours. Mom leaned forward. "Lana, please. You don't understand. You were difficult from the beginning. Always emotional. Always questioning us." "Funny," I said, standing. "I think that just makes me sane." They left shaken, and I didn't stop there. The next morning, the phone rang at 7:42 a.m. It was Dad. "We've fixed everything," he said, his voice thinner than I'd ever heard it. "The business is closed. The loans are paid off. Your name's clean." I didn't say anything. "Lana," he added, "please don't send that email." I let the silence stretch. I deleted the scheduler. I finally said, "It's done." He exhaled. But I hadn't said what he thought I did. I hadn't deleted the email. I deleted their version of the email. Instead, I rewrote it to every contact at the bank, the trust board, the medical licensing bureau, and their church committee. I sent the full truth, the documents, the audio, even a formal report from Celia's file, now notarized. But I didn't accuse. I simply told my story line by line. No anger, no lawsuits, just facts. It was never about vengeance. It was about freedom. In the days that followed, there was chaos. The trust was officially reopened under my sole control. The board contacted me personally. They offered their apology and promised an audit. The money my parents drained, I wouldn't get it all back. But what remained was mine. Celia was reinstated as a respected consultant, this time hired by me. She left her job and joined a mental health advocacy program I quietly funded. We called it the Mirror Project, a support network for women misdiagnosed for someone else's benefit. But the most unexpected twist came weeks later. I was sitting on the porch of my apartment sipping coffee when a young woman approached. She was maybe 19, nervous, clutching a notebook. "Are you Lana?" she asked. "Lana Miles." I nodded. She hesitated. "I found your story online. I think the same thing is happening to me. My mom keeps saying I'm unstable, but only after my grandfather left me something. I don't even know how to prove it." I stood up, invited her in, and I realized the final act of justice wasn't exposing them. It was becoming someone I never had, a witness, a shield, a voice. As for my parents, they faded into their own shadows. My father quietly stepped down from his board position at Clarity Wellness, blaming family stress. My mother posted cryptic Bible quotes about forgiveness for weeks, pretending nothing had happened. They never apologized, and I never asked them to. Sometimes justice doesn't need an apology. It just needs to be seen. Today I sign my own documents. I write my own checks. And when I look in the mirror, I no longer see someone broken. I see someone free. And the therapist they hired to control me, she works for me now. But more than that, she believes me now, and so do I.